your hands up. Hey. Oh, say you're amazing. You're amazing. Hey. You make my life. Hey. Hey. Yeah. You're amazing. Oh, you make my life. You made my life, yeah. Said all your promise me the yay and amen. You're not a man, you never lie. Lift your hands to him. Jesus, you love me too much, oh, oh. Too much, oh, excess love, oh. Jesus, you love me too much, oh, oh, oh. You love me. You love me, I cannot say why. Yes, you love me. Jesus, you love me too much, oh.
Clap your hands, South Florida. I want you to give a home welcome to our very own Miss Betty Wright.
He's my axe in times of battle. He's my rock, my sword, and my shield. He's the peace in the midst of the storm. He's the wheel in the middle of the wheel. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. He's my bread when I'm hungry, well of water down in my soul. Jehovah Jireh, he's my provider, healer, redeemer, makes me whole. I call him when I need him the most. He never lets me down. And when my ways seem dark and low, he's a friend that I have found. I call him when I need him the most. He never let me down. And when my way seems dark and lonely, he's a friend.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon. Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Break drum.
Ask Elaine, better ask Elaine. Ask
Oh, well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to have you there as always. Those of you who joined us on AM and those who are on FM and those who have joined us on Facebook Live, welcome, welcome. You know that it's Wednesday. You know that it's 3 p.m. because you see us right here. This is Ask Elaine, and this is your voice, Commissioner Elaine Lucas, welcoming you to the show. Those of you who've joined us on Facebook Live, please like and share so that those folks who forgot to tune in at 3 will remember, be reminded to tune in because we've got some really important information to share. It's our desire that every week that you leave us smarter, that you've learned some things that will help you to navigate this thing we call life. And so we welcome you here. We thank you for being so loyal to us these over 10 years that we've been on the radio, and we hope to continue providing your news and information. We want to say hello to Ricky Crawford, who's joined us, and also to the twin, Randy Crawford. Thank you both for tuning in. And if y'all would like and share, that will remind somebody who forgot. And thanks again, those who've tuned in on AM or FM. If you'd like to ask a question about any of the topics on today's show, would you please call us at 478 250 1444? 478 250 1444. We have greeted you. We hope you feel welcome as always to the show. We've asked you to like and share. We want to express our condolences and hello, Maria Bryant with the NAACP has joined us as always. Miss Voter registration. That's Miss Voter Registration in Macon, NAACP. And we want to welcome her. But we want to express our condolences to the families of those who are dealing with the loss of loved ones. We'd also like to say congratulations to the students of Mount DeSales who graduated just a few days ago. We'd also like to congratulate all of the students who are in the public schools who will be graduating very soon, who are attending their proms and enjoying all of the things that go with growing up. And we do hope that you will be safe. There is so much going on. Unfortunately, we just got word that there was a shooting in Atlanta, and I believe several people were killed, and it's an active scene now. The person who did the shooting has not been apprehended, and so it's still on the loose. And people are it's there's a lot of lockdown going on in that portion of Atlanta, but. Four of the people who were injured, I think, have been taken to the hospital, and we are just hoping and praying for their recovery. Here again, until we get some kind of restrictions on who can have a gun and where you can have a gun and all of that. And I've told many of you, I recently, after I had my tire cut, I said that's the last straw. You can talk about me, you can do all kinds of stuff, but then you have the nerve to cut my tire. I went and I do have my pistola, and I have taken my safety training from Madonna Baker and plan to go back to some more target practice because I'm going to protect myself. But it's so hurtful to me because I'm one more in that pattern of more and more people getting guns. More and more people getting guns. And you get a gun because you're afraid because there are some people who have no business having a gun. And we ought to put in place some common sense kinds of things and some requirements for safety training. That's the least that we can do. And whenever there are municipalities or areas that have implemented some gun control, just minimum gun control, the deaths from gun violence decrease. Those deaths decrease. And we want to welcome Patrick Davis. We have our own researcher for Ask Elaine. His name is Patrick Davis. And as we're exploring topics each week, Patrick makes the references, places the references for us. He's going to reference you in just a minute when we start talking. But we want to welcome Patrick, Maria Bryant, Harriet Taylor has joined us, the Ricky and Randy Crawford, and we look forward to seeing all of you at Soul Jam on May 28th. The senator was here the last 2 weeks talking about Soul Jam, which is one of the oldest rhythm and blues outdoor events, festivals that we have here in Macon. It has been endorsed by the Macon 2000 committee. That means that while they've been advertising Bragg Jam and Cherry Blossom and all of those other things, then they will also now start to assist with making sure that everybody knows Soul Jam. And there's the flyer for Soul Jam. Midnight Star. Who else? Oh, that our engineer is trying to be funny because he knows I can't see that. But I do. You help me out, Mr. Engineer. Earthquake will be the MC. I'm gonna give him a candy bar when we finish this. Big Mike and the Booty Poppers, Heat Wave, our own Senator David Lucas and the David Lucas Singers will be performing. Midnight Star, John Dunn, and the Jazz Men. They are wonderful. Jay Wan, who just appeared on the Rhythm and Blues festival at the Centralplex. Stan Butler and Nicole Jackson. And we are just so happy this year that it's co-sponsored. The naming sponsors are Bud Light and Tito's out of Savannah, Tito's Vodka. So get ready, put it on your calendar. Come to Henderson Stadium on May the 28th. The gates open at 1 o'clock, I believe. The show begins at 3. And you can come in, bring your own groceries. And I see people pulling wagons and stuff with all of their food. They set up tables, they cook out, and they bring their lawn chairs and their umbrellas. It's a fashion show, y'all, too, because people just, I think, buy special outfits to come, and it's just wonderful to see people come together. And you can bring your own liquid drinks, whatever. You just can't bring glass bottles because that is a football stadium and we don't want to break any glass and leave it out there. It's an athletic field, so you understand. We'd like to also ask you if you would bring trash bags. Bring a couple of trash bags or 3 or 4, and before you leave, make sure the area that you have used and enjoyed and had all of this entertainment and ate dinner, that you clean up, that you put your trash in, all of it. Because now some people won't be quite able to do that. So they will have had too much libation and too much food. But the family, y'all get together and let's leave the stadium clean. And that says something about the folks who are attending. Usually there are 4 to 5,000 people who attend Soul Jam. And so we want you to be there. Some of the same people who will be coming have been coming year after year after year. This is the 23rd annual Soul Jam, sponsored by our own Senator David E. Lucas, and the gang will be there. DA Anita Howard is one of the sponsors. She's going to have a table set up. NAACP will be there, and a number of other nonprofit organizations. But if you bring your own food, you run out of food, we'll have concessions, and also overtime will be providing any other spirits that you might want to get. So this is going to be a wonderful thing. Black Voters Matter will be there. It is just going to be wonderful. Wonderful. This is the 23rd annual. So start planning. Tickets, I believe, are 45 in advance, and 50 at the gate. Police will be there. There will be plenty of security. So, and we've never had any problem at all at Soul Jam. But if there is a problem, it will be taken care of very, very quickly because there's a lot of security there to make sure that you have a good time. And so I encourage you, get ready now. Get ready now. If you want to set up a tent, you got to be there at 7 a.m. in the morning on that Sunday morning so that you can get your spot and set it up. And we will make sure that your tent is placed around the periphery of the stadium only, not in the middle of the thing because you're going to have to move it, but around the periphery of it. So, Soul Jam, y'all get ready. Get ready. All the rest try to imitate it, but nobody can duplicate it. So, you want to be at Soul Jam on May 28th. That's the day before Memorial Day. So, I wanted to do that little commercial. We'll be talking about Soul Jam again next week and each Wednesday up until it's time for you to come to Soul Jam. Shirley Lester has joined us. Patrick has posted the information on police issues, warning about possible active shooter in Atlanta. And so we are just so distressed over the loss of life. It is so, so senseless. And what we do here in Macon is we kill them two at a time. We kill people. We're killing ourselves off two at a time. It's a shame. It is really a shame that these families have to go through that. And not only do the families lose loved ones, but we also lose somebody who goes to jail for life. So I just encourage you to please think, and put people in office, vote and put people in office who are going to do what needs to be done. And that's to help put in place some sensible gun safety measures so that we don't allow somebody to walk around no requirements at all before getting a gun. And the kind of guns that folks are getting are these automatic, semi-automatic. These things are intended for war. They're not intended for all of us. They're intended for war. So when you have these, your intention is to do a lot of harm. I'm through with that right now. Other than before we call on our guest, and I know he's no there. When is she going? Hush, so I can talk about what I need to talk about. But on yesterday, Macon Bibb tore down house number 499 and house number 500. Those are those old, dilapidated, burned out houses where folks go up in them and set them on fire and stuff, and put a lot of trash that blows over on your house and your property. You're trying to keep yours clean and respectable and decent and everything, but you got to sit there and look at that. Well, house number 499 and house number 500 came down yesterday morning. It was over in the district that I represent, District 3, over near the Indian Mounds and all that, where the new entrance to the Indian Mounds is gonna take place. Y'all didn't know that, did you? Yeah, we're gonna have a new entrance. It's gonna be wonderful over there. But anyway, this was the start of it, and we were very, very proud of that. And we also approved making it easier to get street lights put on the streets of Macon that are going to help with your safety. So, enough of that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that next week and about other things that are happening that are positive things in Macon Bibb County. All right, today we have with us our first special guest is Mr. Raymond Boyce, and he has a foundation. And I'm hearing myself twice, Mr. Engineer. That's he's telling me it's me. Is it me? Okay. All right. We have Mr. Raymond Boyce. We'd like to introduce him to you here in Macon and vicinity, all those who are listening in and those who've joined us by Facebook Live. He has a foundation, Let's Breathe Together. And so we're going to let him go ahead and introduce himself again, tell a little bit about his background, and then tell us a little bit about um, okay. Okay. All right. We're going to let him tell you why it's important, why he's come to Macon Bibb County today to inform us. Welcome, Mr. Boyce. I hope I didn't talk too long. My husband
You
says I tell it all before the guest has a chance to get on, but there's just so much happening. Welcome to Ask Elaine.
glad to be here. I'm just disappointed you didn't ask me to come play for Soul Jam.
I didn't know. I didn't.
First of all,
Yeah.
I am an inspirational saxophonist. First of all,
Oh,
yes,
okay. Okay. I did see that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm here with the Raymond Boyce Foundation for Asthma and Allergies. I had one of the worst cases of asthma that you could have.
Hmm.
Lived in an oxygen tent most of my childhood life, and so learned to play the saxophone after being delivered of asthma. And many parents and kids come and ask me, how can they get over asthma? So
Hmm.
the month of May is Asthma Month. And so we're trying to spread awareness for asthma because so many in our communities, we don't have the right medicines needed for asthma. We don't even know, we're not educated enough with asthma to know things that cause the asthma, even in our home, how
Hmm.
we can help our children with just small things in our home. So we're trying to spread awareness this month with asthma.
Okay, okay. Wade Horton has joined us. Wade is has a disability. He does not. He's blind, and he is an advocate for transportation,
Okay.
especially for the disabled in our community. He has joined us, and Cynthia Cersei, who is the winner of the two tickets that Mayor Ellis purchased on last week. Those two tickets, and if she comes here before we leave at like 4:15, I will have her tickets for her. I want to welcome Shirley Lester and all the others who've joined us. Tell us some of the things that tell us something about our numbers here in this state. Do you have some numbers as to how bad the asthma
Uh,
is?
I didn't bring the numbers with me, but Georgia is one of the worst states for asthma because of all the pollen and stuff that we have in
Mm-hmm.
Georgia and the
Mm-hmm.
weather. But so many kids are suffering and they're unable, can't even afford the right medicine. So
Mm-hmm.
we're working with a pharmaceutical company or different companies so we can get coupons to present to families that can't afford the
Ah,
medicine,
okay.
and we want to help families understand that even small things in your house create more asthma.
Uh-huh.
And this is May. It's time to clean your house for spring cleaning, summer
Yeah, it
cleaning.
is. It's time to clean.
And so one
Uh-huh.
thing about it, even just the dust in your house causes a lot of asthma, causes breathing problems. You
Mm-hmm.
have to look at the keeping your carpet clean. You have to look at what you eat, what you feed your children, or you whoever have asthma. That can help flare asthma up. So
Mm-hmm.
we just want to
Mm-hmm.
bring the awareness so people can start looking out for it more and help themselves even more with it.
Right, right. A lot of people have allergies now. Like I have allergies year round, the stuffiness and all of that. But there's a difference between the allergies and asthma.
Hmm.
Asthma is a chronic condition where there's a problem with the actual
Right.
breathing.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well, they end up going together. If you got asthma, a lot of times you get the allergies as
mm-hmm,
well. So
mm-hmm.
they kind of work hand in hand. And since COVID has come about, it have raised the death of asthma more so even because if you got COVID, it's worse on you
Oh
if you have
yeah,
asthma. So
yeah.
we're trying to help people just even kind of help prevent from getting COVID and what to do if they get COVID, how to
Right,
take care of themselves
right.
better.
There are a lot of people who think that COVID is over.
Right,
That no, you can still get COVID, y'all. As a matter of fact, I've been toying with the idea of just since I have the allergies and COVID is still around and you can't see who has COVID and who doesn't,
right.
I've been thinking of going back to that mask
Hmm.
on a regular basis. And when I'm out of town, I do. And I'm in a crowd, I
Right.
do use my mask. Do you, Mayor?
I
You
do
use
when
your
I'm in,
mask?
yeah, when I get a lot of
He
crowded people,
he
I don't have.
travels to Africa an
Yeah.
awful lot,
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
so yeah, I was
All
wondering.
right.
A lot of us have stopped
Mhm.
using the mask, but in some countries, that's just a way of life.
Right.
People, uh,
Well, I highly recommend it too when you're in new areas, not your own surrounding mainly. Still wear the mask on your face.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm hmm Okay, tell us about your foundation and the successes that you've had
Okay.
with
Uh,
spreading the word.
yeah. Well, what we're doing, we're just traveling everywhere, spreading the word. We have a new title song out for the foundation called "Breathe Together."
Oh,
So I
okay.
want everybody to learn to breathe together because when you have asthma, if you've seen a fish out of water trying to breathe, it's like you're a lot like a fish out of water,
Uh-huh.
and so you gasping for air any way you can. So we're trying to help people so everybody can come and breathe together. Let's live a healthy life
Mhm.
with asthma. So that we are traveling, spreading the word with that, and just educating, bring people up to snuff so they can be educated with what's going on
Mhm.
with asthma so
Mhm.
they can help prevent asthma, help from getting worse, and help if they have COVID with asthma.
Mhm. Mhm. Patrick has put in the chat. He's asking what triggers asthma. He says sinus infections, allergies, pollen, breathing in some chemicals, and acid reflux can all trigger attacks. Physical exercise, some medicines, bad weather, such as thunderstorms or high humidity, breathing in cold, dry air, and some foods, food additives, and fragrances can also trigger an asthma attack.
Yeah,
That's
that's
our
very good.
research
Yeah,
person.
very
He's
good.
thorough. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why in your home you have to know these things a lot. What triggers the asthma, like he said, the fragrances.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
a lot of the fragrance that we wear, it helped trigger the asthma. So we need to know all that kind of stuff and learn about the different foods that what it have in it to help flare up
Yeah.
asthma.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because during this season it's really a bad time for it too. So it flares up a lot, and a lot of so many years we've gone by not being educated to know what would flare up asthma. We just
Right.
know we're sick. Yeah.
Right. 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 Okay. What got you involved in advocating on for those with asthma? Tell
Right.
us a little bit about that.
Okay, back to what I said at the beginning. I had one of the worst cases of asthma that
Mhm.
you could have. I lived most of my childhood life in an oxygen tent.
Mhm.
I had asthma so bad you couldn't understand me when I talked. The doctor had told my mother and father that I may have to live with this the rest of my life because I had it so bad.
Mhm.
But my mother and father, first of all, believed in God and had the faith that God was going to heal me one day. And I wanted the saxophone because I felt since I can't talk, it would talk for me.
Mhm.
And maybe people would like me if I could play the saxophone.
Mhm.
So that's how the saxophone came by. But I couldn't play it while I was young until I got grown.
Mhm.
And now I'm playing the saxophone
Yeah.
professionally, travel
Yeah.
playing the
Yeah. Very
saxophone.
successful.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it have opened up a lot of doors for me to go speak places and to give my story of how I've been delivered of asthma.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful to have that experience and then to want to share
Right,
it with other folks and help others
right.
to survive. Because asthma, there are some folks who pass away from asthma
Yes,
attacks. When you
yes.
can't breathe, that's serious.
That's very
That's
serious.
serious,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And many of our children, because I've retired from the Bibb school system, and that was always something that we watched in the
Right.
classroom or checked the folders, the health files, to make sure
Oh
we
yeah.
knew what chronic conditions students had
Right.
and the ones that you maybe could give some medicine for and the others that maybe you needed
Right.
to give medicine and do some other things too. So that is nothing to play around
Right.
with, and it's kind of scary.
It's very
It's
scary.
scary
Yeah.
too. It's
Yeah.
scary too.
Many times my mother and father didn't even know if I would make it.
Uh-huh.
And I had asthma so bad I wanted to die because it
Mm.
was just too much pain.
Mm-hmm.
All my insides were sore all the time. It just hurted to even try to breathe. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give up life. So now that I'm healed, I understand what firsthand what people are going through that have asthma. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try to reach out and help because so many people come to me everywhere I go, so
Mm-hmm.
want to know how I got delivered of
Yeah.
asthma. So I
Yeah.
try to encourage them, and not it's not just even asthma, even anybody with any kind of illness or sickness. First of all, one thing we got to do, I found out, we got to quit complaining about it so much, and we got to praise God for it, even in the midst of what we're going through. And if we praise him long enough, I feel now that he'll come to the rescue. If we have the faith
Mm-hmm.
to believe he'll
Mm-hmm.
do it for you too.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Mayor, do you have any questions for Mr. Boyce?
I just
It,
think it's a great thing because what we do know is that African American, especially African American children, suffer from asthma more so than any other group. So
mm-hmm.
it's good that we have someone who advocated and raised an awareness,
Right.
just as we do with diabetes and high blood pressure. It seems that for whatever reason, like a lot of the bad stuff is more prevalent in our community, and it has to
Well,
do that has a lot to do with the environment
some of
too.
it's
Yeah.
Has a lot to do with the
environmental. That's
environmental
right.
and where we live and the things that surround us. Because people went a long time ago. If you look at the people who lived around these industrial bases out in Tybee and things like that nature, if you look at their life expectancy and their quality of life later on, breathing all of that dirty air and
Mm-hmm.
Right.
everything else,
Mm-hmm.
that they were more
Mm-hmm.
susceptible to those diseases. So thank you
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
bringing this to our
Yeah.
attention.
There are many, many places that are contaminated now that the federal government has forced some communities to clean up
Right.
because they are causing certain illnesses, and especially among poor people. And a lot of times, the poorer people in a community are Black people. Just
Hmm.
happen to be Black people. We have the most, the least, uh, um, well, those places that are not as nice
Yeah,
as some other places in communities.
yeah,
Sometimes we're relegated to those places.
yeah,
So we end up with some environmental
yeah.
issues too. I believe Fort Valley had to have a big cleanup. We've had to have some cleanups done here due to some contamination here at different
Oh yeah.
sites in Macon Bibb,
Yeah.
and there's an ongoing testing program
Right.
in sight in South Bibb and some other
Yeah.
places. So,
That's where we live. If you look at Tybee, that was in the old industrial place where all type of pollutants were being emitted into the air. Even Balls in the Yard, the big train station, the big train transfer place there, where all of those chemicals, like what happened in Ohio, if anything happens in that area, if one of those trains blow
mhm,
up or something, one of those tanks, it's going to affect poor and Black people more than it, because that's where
right,
they live. They
right,
live in close proximity
Yeah, I
to
was
it.
gonna
So
right,
say a lot of it is in our area,
exactly.
and
right.
so when it happened,
We even had schools. We had Ada Banks. We had an
Yeah,
elementary school located next to a very located
that's
next
right.
to Procter and Gamble, and everything else was
That's
located
right.
down there that they were emitting all this stuff. And if you take a look at, and I'm not telling Councilwoman Commissioner Lucas anything that she doesn't know because she served on the health department. If you look at the life expectancy of African Americans in this town, it's like 10 years less than white people. 10
Depending
years.
on what
Mhm.
Yeah,
area you
yeah,
live
yeah,
in.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But by and large, and if you look at even COVID, we had. If you look at the amount of people, I had the superintendent, what not so, well, director of Dr. Smith on my program recently on
Hmm.
the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I get a little help.
Health department.
Yeah, the health department
Uh-huh.
had him on, and he told me that about 750 people died from COVID in this county during the COVID. I don't know whether those numbers are all, whether you can verify, but that's what he said. And
I
that's a lot of
think it's
people.
more than that.
Well, that's a
Those
lot.
numbers were just
Well,
a
that was
slice.
a year ago, almost a year and
Right,
a half
right.
ago that
And
he
he
told
was
me.
giving you a short span of
Yeah.
time because there were more
Oh yeah.
than that.
But which is a lot of
It's
people,
a lot.
given
A
the
Right.
lot of
size,
people
given the
died.
size of our county. We're under
But there were
60,000
some
people.
people that I saw walking around during the height of COVID with no mask. They did not believe that this thing existed, but they saw people dying. Knew people who passed away from, but they still would not. It's
But
my
like you said, it's
right.
still here. COVID is still with
It's
us.
still with
Yeah,
us.
Still with us.
one thing we got to do, we got to stop thinking that it won't affect us.
Right.
Okay, even if you feel that it won't affect you, it might affect somebody else. So we need to be careful and look out for somebody else if we want to keep living. And that's why we're talking about asthma. We want to educate people now so we can expand our life. Okay, because we are dying too fast from all the different diseases. And it's not
Right.
just for asthma, even the other different diseases that go on. We need to stop and educate ourselves some more so we'll know what's going on and how to prevent
But
suffering.
and with that, we have a governor and we have these Republicans will not expand Medicaid
You're
for poor
right.
people.
You're
So
right.
therefore the emergency room becomes their doctor.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
they when you're going to the emergency room, you're already sick.
Right.
That's why you go, it's an emergency.
Right.
So if they had any sense, if they cared about people, they would do the preventive stuff that you've got to have means to do preventive health. You've got to have the money to have a doctor, to go see a doctor, to get a regular checkup.
Right.
And a lot of poor people just can't afford insurance.
That's right.
But yet they're turning their back on something because it's called Obamacare. They don't want it
Right.
because it
But
affects
when it's
poor
called
people.
the Affordable Care Act,
It's
they
okay.
say, "Oh, that's
Yeah, where do I
good.
sign?"
That's good. Give me that. Give me that." Thank you, President Obama, and our President Biden. And we talked last week. It matters who you put in office.
Oh, yes.
It matters who is in place because all of the federal money that's come into our community, over 100 million to the Board of Education, 77 million to our Macon Bibb County Consolidated Government, some of which went to the Transit Authority. That was your money. And by the way, did I tell you that they had backed up on the fare increases? You know, they were going
last
to
week. Yeah,
increase
we
the
talked.
fares.
Yeah, last week.
How
And thanks to you.
cold-hearted
Yeah.
can you be?
Right.
People who are already just making just enough to get by, and they have to wait for an hour to get on this bus and then an hour travel and coming back. And then how dare you think of increasing the fares? But we beat them.
Yeah.
We
Right.
fought that. We fought that. I've got my little sign at my desk at City Hall. It says no fare increase.
Yes.
And after the commission voted unanimously to oppose it and the Macon Transit Authority, I'm going to leave it up there a little while just to remind people that the news article said no bus fare increases for now. I'm saying no bus fare increases for a long time. And I hope that folks are hearing me because until things get better for the majority of people in this community, we don't need to have those kinds of increases. So I will fight it in office or out of office. It doesn't matter.
And if they're going to raise it, that's a big if they're going to raise it, then you let the bus service run on Sunday. You have it run until at least midnight, and you have it going out to that new mall and other places where people
You
need to
gotta
go.
justify it.
You know,
I
yes.
might think about it.
Yes.
And others might think about it if you give us a reason
Exactly.
as far as service. Because after all, it's our money.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
It's our money that's used that's
Right.
just coming back
mhm.
to support the but they must not know that that's all of our money.
They know.
I don't
they
think
don't
they
care.
think about it. They don't care. What were
Right.
you gonna say?
That's why it's so important to support the commission and the mayor in the city. That's why the people need to stop complaining. If you just stand back and complain, nothing happens.
That's right.
Okay, but if you get behind your commission, your mayor in the city, you can make some things happen.
Yeah, but
That's right.
But we have to complain too. We have to push, and like we had to have the voice of Councilwoman Commissioner Lucas to lead this fight, because this thing could have just happened had we been asleep at the switch, if
right,
you will.
right.
Next thing you know, because poor people sometimes they don't have time to go down and advocate for themselves. Like she said, people are busy working, trying to make ends meet. and they got to get on the bus to go down there to complain, and you got to pay to go complain. And a lot of people just won't do it.
Yeah.
And even though we know it's their responsibility, but thank God we elect people with a voice,
Right.
not only a seat at the table, with a voice at the table.
Well,
Exactly.
we got to start thinking about who's going to take our places when we are term limited. I am term limited. My term ends next year, the end of 2024. Three others on the commission will be term limited. And so I'm just encouraging you, if you are sincere about serving, you need to step forward and you need to start reading the enabling legislation that set these different bodies up, so you know what your qualifications are and whether you can fulfill those qualifications. And also start reading information about that.
Yeah.
Come to the meetings, show people that you're concerned before you step up the day before qualifying is over and then decide that you're going to run. I'm not going to support you if you haven't shown that you were willing to do something before you
Yeah.
decided to get the title. Cynthia Cersei says that she worked for a pediatric pulmonologist and saw many of our Black children living in areas, and I've lost that, living in areas, living in areas that asthma was a product of living conditions. Asthma can be minor or it can interfere with your lifestyle. We want to welcome Overseer Mabel Randall. Good afternoon to you. And we thank you all for tuning in. Let me remind you that you've tuned in to Ask Elaine. This is your talk and information program. We're here each Wednesday from 3 until 4. We're on AM and FM with WDDO, and we're also streamed live on Facebook Live every week from 3 to 4. And our special guests today are none other than Mr. Raymond Boyce with his foundation, and he's trying to inform people that asthma is a real serious thing, and he's willing to put his name out there and his work out there and helping to educate people about it and encourage people to get to the doctor, get the treatment. We also have our former mayor, our only Black mayor, hopefully not the last Black mayor.
Let's hope so.
Because the intention was that there would never be another Black mayor. You know that. That's what
I know. That's
consolidation was
tell me
about.
it. And party, getting rid of partisan election.
Exactly.
Put in the election
in May
rather than November.
Right. And term
Yeah.
limits.
And
term limits. If we can't beat them, they won't be able to serve forever.
But I want to.
So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. But we welcome you here to Ask Elaine. Go ahead.
Speaking of transportation and buses, if you will allow me, madam, last night, I advocated for this bicentennial commission. If you recall,
right, making 200.
I advocated that even Robert Rickett would get that thing started. Why I advocated for it? Because in 1923, the centennial of the city, there was a 377-page document produced on Macon's history.
Right.
And only 3 of those pages were dedicated to Black people.
3 pages.
3 pages dedicated
out of
to Macon's
how
Negroes.
many pages?
377. 303 pages.
3
were donated.
We got 3.
Were dedicated, and they called us Macon's Negroes, and that's how. But they didn't pick us up to after the Civil War. They didn't say anything about us being here doing slavery, which we were. About half of the population always been. But my point is this: last night, I had the opportunity to go out to Wesleyan College and listen to a presentation that the Bicentennial Commission was putting out on transportation. And what they did was shameful. How they presented this.
Why am I not surprised?
They did not even talk about the buses being segregated here. They didn't talk about the first it just so happened that my brother was the first African-American bus driver that was hired in this town in 1966, William Ellis, my late brother. But they didn't, not because but they didn't even mention that. If we want to know who the first Black police officer was hired, we know that. But yet they didn't but they didn't take any of this in the history of transportation. We renovated the airport during my administration. Of course, your name was on the plaque out there with all the other city council people because that was a $9 million renovation project. Do you realize that they've taken the plaque down and put it in the garbage someplace and did not even mention the fact, even they talked about the airport being renovated, didn't even mention the fact that it happened during my administration, did not mention that the
really?
didn't even mention that. The only reason they mentioned the colored waiting room because they have to, because it had been covered up, as you recall, and we took it down.
Yeah.
But they did. But then what they did with the colored waiting room, rather than renovate it like they were supposed to, I left all the money and the plan in place when I left for Robert Rickett. They used the colored waiting room as a storage area and just threw stuff in it. Didn't do anything to renovate it as it should have been that the plans called for. And one other thing that they didn't do, they last night they didn't talk about the school buses in this town, and this was on transportation. Now, this last night thing was on transportation. Yeah. They didn't mention the fact that African American children. And if you remember, you were too young, maybe Elaine, to remember this, but I lived on Log Cabin Drive. In order to get to Ballard Hudson High School, we had to pay. We had to walk up to Napier Avenue, get on the city bus, and it was designated to carry colored children, not the yellow bus. Now, the white kids were riding on yellow buses, and we had to get tokens. And our parents were poor. We had to pay to get a bus to take us to Ballard Hudson, not a yellow bus, a city bus. And while white kids were riding free, going to Lanier and Miller, we were having to pay to go from Bellevue to Ballard Hudson and back every day. So all that was omitted.
What you're saying is true.
Yeah.
What would tell me a little bit about the format of the program, because I had intended to go, because anything that transit
that they are putting into.
So who did it? Who presented?
Craig Ross was the moderator.
Craig Ross is a racist who was the one who...
Jamie Godet did a piece, and someone else did a piece. But this is what they're going to put in the annals of history. So 200 years from now, if a person wanted to go and say, I want to look at, read about transportation, and hear about, that's what they are going to see. They just completely omitted so much stuff that should be included.
So where is this going to be placed? Is this going to be...
in the archives. This is going to be in the archives of the history of this.
No.
The archives of the history.
This is a Christian radio station. Yeah. I did not say that.
I heard Biden say the same thing the other day.
Uncle Joe can get away. But okay.
Yeah. But what I'm saying
our
is that
transportation function.
Now, I brought this to the attention of Alex Habersham. He's the co-chair.
Right.
And I wanted to know, how did this get by? How did this slip by? How did this become the final product? I mean, they could run it by and say, let's present this to the commission. Here's what we do. And then we can call attention. Wait a minute, you've omitted this, that, and the other. And they say, oh, we only have so much time, but you committed so much time for other stuff you're talking about all the weddings that take place at the terminal station. That is a multimodal facility.
Right.
That's not an event center. That is a multimodal facility paid for by MTA.
They're making the money off of the rentals.
Exactly.
They're making the money off the rentals, and then they're getting local money,
but still want to raise money, and still want to raise.
Look, we're going to follow up on that. When I leave here, I'm going to call somebody and say, y'all need to intercept that information. It does not need to be placed anywhere as the truth.
And that's what it is.
And so we can't.
For generations yet unborn will read this and say, who they say the airport was renovated, but don't make any mention that it was happening during a certain administration. But yet they will talk about Louis B. Wilson, how he did for the airport way back when. But yet the airport had not been renovated since 1959 until we renovated it and made it what it is now.
Right.
But they make no mention of it and took the plaque down where we had put their when we dedicated
Y'all,
it.
This is what CRT, this whole fight about CRT, critical race theory, where folks want to take our history and just do away with it.
Exactly.
Make it disappear. They don't want anything that says that Black folks were here. And their feeling is if they can say that Black folks were not here, they don't have to live with the shame of having us as their slaves. That's what this whole thing is about. We want to welcome Pastor Lisa Watson. Let's see who else.
Oh,
Cynthia
I owe
Cersei.
her a call,
Uh,
Pastor
yeah,
Watson.
yeah.
I'm
All of
glad.
the folks who
Hello.
have joined us. We're having just a wonderful discussion here from
Yeah.
asthma to making transit authority. I mean, we're covering
To
it
our
all.
history and our
Oh,
history
look.
here.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
another thing,
y'all.
another thing, and you would, of course, care about this. We all should care about it. George Washington Carver School was located on Hazel Street, a school named in honor of the greatest scientist ever lived. I mean, a lot of people will agree with that.
Yeah,
White and
yeah,
black would agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
But yet they take his school and say it should only be used as a jail, and we convert it to a jail. But we have gotten the sheriff down to take all of there's no more prisons in that, and we have agreed. He's agreed in principle, and we'll be coming to the council pretty soon, the commission, to get that school donated to the 100 black men. We are writing a grant to renovate that school, put it back to its natural thing. And it will always be George Washington Carver School for Science and
Oh, now that
Technology.
is
Right.
wonderful.
Yes.
That
Right.
is wonderful. And those of you who are concerned about this kind of stuff, you got to join in with us because Macon is majority black. And if we show that we care about our heritage, there are some whites who care too,
Yeah.
who will help. But they're only going to step out there if we step out
The
and
sheriff,
try and
you're right.
save ourselves. If I'm out there, I'm not trying to do anything for myself. Why should anybody else help me? So what we've got to do is to make sure that when we find out about these things, that we start taking a stand, just like people did with the transit authority. We had gobs of people who came and supported our push to oppose. And you see what happened. We were able to do it, but we got to keep our eye on the prize, though, because they say for now. And so that means they're going to try it again later on. And we got some black folks sitting up on the transit authority who either were asleep or they didn't care. And so we've got to watch who we place on these different boards and authorities. If they're going to go and just sit there with their name on the little name plate, they don't need to be there.
And
They've got to go and
don't
take care
question
of,
things.
don't ask a thing. Those folks on the transit authority voted to increase the fares and claim that they did not even know that that's what they voted for.
They should resign.
And I said, you didn't know? Here are the minutes. And I had the actual minutes. And then had their name down there. So and so made the motion, or so and so said that it's inevitable that we raise the fares. And so said, I support raising the fares. And then later on said, that's not what we voted for. And I had to show them the minutes where they were listed
Their
there,
own minutes.
their own minutes, which, by the way, they don't record, which, by the way, they have got to start doing that. They're in the Stone Age.
I really
They
agree,
really are.
but I really
Anyway,
agree with you with
anyway.
them moving the venue where they have that meeting. Now, if they just want to
Oh,
have
it's not
if they want to have
compliant.
a meeting with themselves, a closed meeting, fine. But if it's open to the public, it should be more accessible than it is.
That's
now.
right. That's right. You got to go on the elevator to the fourth floor, and then you got to amble across the floor to these very narrow stairs, metal stairs. You better not fall either. The narrow stairs, and for us big hip girls, I mean, that's not an easy thing. We have to have some room. So go up there and then you open the door and there's an elevator that they have, but transit authority has to know and have somebody there to turn a key to allow you to get on the elevator.
One person a
Right,
lift, yeah.
right. And then that brings you up. But what about somebody who can walk like Wade Horton? Wade doesn't see. So I mean, what about him? And Wade made a point too. We came down the elevator and there was no voice to say
Yeah.
first floor, second floor, third floor. And Wade said, how do I know where I am?
Do they have? They don't even have the, what do you call it?
The Braille.
Braille. They don't have Braille there either, do
I
they?
didn't even
No,
notice
they
that,
don't.
whether that was on
No, it's
there
not.
or not, but I will when I
Yeah.
go the
It's
next
not.
time.
I didn't see it.
But there is no voice
But
that
it should have been
says,
there when that if you look at that plan that we put in place to develop that place, that was supposed to happen to completely handicap accessible. That's not where that conference room was designated to be. The colored waiting room was supposed to be completely renovated like everything else, and the what do you call it? The conference room was supposed to be accessible on the first floor. That's where it was supposed to have been. That's what the grant. That's what FTA approved. Now they just went in there and did what they wanted to do, chopped the colored waiting room up, and you guess what they put in the colored waiting room? That's why they decided to put the bathroom in, and put their garbage. But yet it's a historic building, so it should have been put back to its original. That's
Oh
what
yeah.
historic means, that it should
Right.
be like it was
right,
initially.
right,
Hmm.
right. Patrick has placed in the chat from 2007, Mayor, an article on the airport where you were stating the airport would never close. You did so much until I'm sure you don't remember
Yeah.
everything, but Patrick does statistics, so he pulls everything up. Let's go back because we run out of time. I tell you, we run out of time so fast, especially when we're having
Oh
interesting
yeah.
discussions like this. So, if you will summarize your foundation and what you want the people who are listening or watching this program to know about asthma and about your foundation's
Okay.
work.
Let me say one thing before I go there.
Sure.
That's why, Commissioner, we gotta do like you said. Don't just let somebody come in when it's time to run for office.
Right.
If they're not working all the while, so you can see what they're doing, don't vote them in,
Right.
because
Right.
they getting voted in, bought out by somebody else, and then they change on you.
That's
So we
right.
need somebody that's going to stand up the whole time for
That's
us.
right.
Okay. And now back to the Raymond Boys Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, like I said, we're working with pharmaceutical companies as well, trying to get pharmaceutical companies to help give this high expensive medicine, give us some
Yeah.
coupons or something, so we can help our people that can't afford the medicine here.
Because a lot of the better medicine is it's the newest and it's very
Right.
expensive.
Because
Uh-huh.
some of the medicine going like $1,500 a month. We can't afford that. So we want them to work with us, give us some coupons or something, so we can help our people out, so they can be healthier in life
Right.
too. So that's
Right.
that's what the foundation is about. Also, I've written a book called "The Impossible Dream." It's telling my story about having asthma and how I overcame asthma. So
Okay.
it not just about my story, just to encourage people that the same thing can happen with them too.
All right then. That's great. We gotta post your book and all of
Yeah.
that too here. Okay, Mayor, in these last few minutes that we have, tell us about your latest exploits in Africa.
Well, I'll be leaving back again at the end of this month, and we're working on two very important projects. One dealing with medicine, even that we got a link. We're linking up with Mercer Medical School, with a medical school in Uganda, and I'm taking
Oh,
a medical mission there. We're going to be because hepatitis and it's very prevalent there, and we're going to work on clean drinking water. It's something that we take for granted
mm-hmm,
in this
mm-hmm,
country. When we turn the
mm-hmm.
faucet on, hopefully it's not full of lead like Flint, but we do
Yeah,
have some lead in this town as well.
and
But
Mississippi,
in
Jackson,
Mississippi,
Mississippi. Have they
but
gotten that out yet?
well, you know what they did out there. The governor said
They're
he
so
was
busy trying to take over
trying to take
all the
over everything.
governments and
Exactly.
everything
Right.
until they can't even fix the water.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
but we're going to be working on things. That's a big thing that we're working on. So it fits right in with what we're talking about here: health and preventive health. And we've gotten the CDC involved and so forth. So my
That's
job
great.
as the honorary consul general for Uganda is to bring resources, help bring resources to bear. And of course, we have so many resources in Atlanta. But even Mercer, the president of that university, Ugandan Christian University, came here, met with President Underwood. We did an MOU that their medical school, and they're even going to be doing telemedicine because now
Oh,
you
that's
can,
great. That is
their
great.
doctors, their professors here can talk to professors there. So
Hmm.
we're working on those kind of projects. But let me,
But if you can do it between countries, you certainly can do it with your own
exactly.
people, can't you?
Exactly. But
Uh huh.
I want to say one thing about politics before we go. If you are interested in seceding, uh, Commissioner Lucas, call her and say, "Let me talk to you." No, first of all, know where her district, know whether you live in her
Where
district.
your
A lot of people
district?
don't know who their council people are and who they, but know that first of all. For instance, Kings Park, that's in your district,
It
right?
is.
Well, some people called me yesterday from Kings Park, and I told them to call you. Uh, they are concerned that so many corporations, these LLCs that they can't follow, have bought up all these properties, a lot of property, distressed properties, and put people there, and they don't maintain the properties.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
suggest to them that they get a neighborhood association, as they do in other places, and charge a fee, and then you force it because the people own these houses, maybe live in California, they don't care, or they care about whether they
Right.
get their check.
Right.
So we have to make sure we look out for the people, the homeowners who are currently there, who are not going anywhere,
Hmm.
and so that their property value won't go down so
Right.
much. So, but these are kind of things that if you're interested in running for office, you ought to be traveling around the neighborhood right now. And hopefully there'll be 3 or 4 of you that will step up. So we can have a robust and honest debate, and we will elect the best person
Right.
based on
Right.
your vision and based on what you've been doing in the community. The same if you live in Virgil Watkins' district. The same if you live in Al Tillman's district and the other districts.
Mallory Jones.
Mallory Jones.
Hmm.
Get to know your district. Get to know the people in the district, but most of all, get to know the people who are in the seat now and come and talk to them.
Right.
And don't let all this valuable institution knowledge ride off into the sunset with them. But I know Commissioner Lucas will never ride off into the sunset. She will always be available, calling to our attention
Yeah.
everything that's because
Yeah.
I know when she was out of office before, she was still in office.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
anyway, I say that.
Hmm. That's great. And by the way, folks in Kings Park, there is a neighborhood association already.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson down near the new facility that we built with your tax money in Kings Park. Well, it's splost
But
money.
can
It's a
they
neighborhood.
control what goes on in the other words if a home because they were concerned about a home just overgrown and maybe not taking care of it properly the whole can the
Code
neighborhood association
enforcement, the
yeah
neighborhood association can send in to me, or they can send
yeah
in to the mayor and administration a list of items that they'd like to see done. And we have all these different departments that can handle all of those different things. So
right
that, but they need to first of all find out about their neighborhood association, because I know they're not active with it, or they would know
yeah
that there is one
but
out there.
can they make these absentee landlords can they make them be a member of that association and pay money to
I, I,
depending on their
I
bylaws I
don't
guess
know.
depends
I
on
don't
their
know. We have
bylaws
to talk about that
yeah
on another show.
okay
Here we go. Mr. Boyce, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
so much,
so
Elaine.
much for being here. We do appreciate it. And the next time you're in Macon or in this area, let us know. And we'd love to have you back on so that you can share with us the work that you're doing to
Great.
stamp out asthma,
yeah
especially in our former mayor. We just appreciate you. You'll forever be our mayor, and we do appreciate it. And we're going to get to work on those things that you mentioned today. Whew, thank you so much. Don't forget Soul Jam, May 28th. Wonderful time all afternoon until late at night at Henderson Stadium. Bring your own food, your own libations, no glass bottles, and plenty of security and everything. So, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, it's been wonderful having you there. We'll see you again next Wednesday for another edition of Ask Elaine.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry.